Hello, hello. I decided to start a little bit later today so that maybe when she potty breaks and things like that, we wouldn't have to be waiting. Let me remove my background and we will present and share screen. They actually started at 10 this morning. You know, court starts at 9:30, but they got there at 10. So I backed it up just a smidge. Thank you for being here, Miss Crackerjacks and Abellis. Oh, thank you for hitting the thumbs up. Y'all are so awesome. I love y'all so much. Y'all are so amazing hanging out with me during this trial. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit play. Basil is demanding attention, so I'm going to give him some attention, grab my notebook, and get started. Hey, Heathen. Good to see you.
Good morning. We are here
Yes,
today
sir.
to proceed with the trial of State of
Needs the
Connecticut versus
lovin'. Him
Jose
needs the
Morales.
lovin',
I'd first
yes.
like to ask counsel to please place their
I got some
appearances on the
seaweed for
record.
you.
Good morning, Your Honor. For the record, Edward Gavin for Mr. Morales is seated to my left.
Your Honor, Howard Stein,
Want some seaweed?
Supervisory Assistant State's Attorney.
Good morning, Your Honor. Mark Durso, Senior
Oh,
Assistant.
yeah, that's the good stuff.
Thank you. All right, before we
All right.
call the jury in this morning, are there any issues that need to be addressed on the record?
No, Your Honor.
All right, very good. Madam Clerk, do we have the jury?
Good morning, Indy.
All right, why don't we bring them
Fawny. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Jose, this is what she's going to ask you. You're going to testify now. Don't be a slave.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Good morning. Counsel, please stipulate to the return of our jurors.
Stipulate to the presence of the jury, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, Attorney Stein, would the state like to call its next witness at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Hartnett McCann.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Good morning. If you'd please step into the witness box and remain standing, Madam Clerk will put you under oath. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Hey, Cara. Hey, AM. Good
Please state your
morning.
full name, spell your last name, and state your business address for the record, please.
Kristen Hartnett McCann.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. 194.
194. Good morning, Dr. Hartnett McCann.
Good morning.
I sure will,
First of all, can
Indy.
you tell us who are you employed by?
The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the State of Connecticut.
How long have you been employed by the Chief State Medical Examiner's Office?
Since January of 2015, so about 10 years.
And can you tell us a little bit about your background, your training, and your experience, please?
Of course, I earned my bachelor's degree from Cornell University in anthropology and archaeology in 1999, and then earned my master's degree in bioarchaeology from Arizona State University in 2003, and my PhD in biological anthropology from Arizona State University in 2007.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you hold any special board certifications?
Yes, I am board certified by the American Board of Forensic Anthropology.
And can you tell us, you just used the term forensic
Hey,
anthropology.
Nessa and Jenny.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what forensic anthropology is?
A forensic
It'll be-
anthropologist analyzes the human skeleton to help determine a person's identity through their biological profile, which is their age, sex, ancestry or population affinity, and stature, as well as analyze the human skeleton for any signs of trauma.
So now, in your capacity as an associate with the Office of the Chief State Medical Examiner, are you consulted by other medical examiners' office with regard to things within your area of specialty?
Yes,
And can you tell me, with regard to a laboratory case number 19-21392, an autopsy of Christine Holloway, did you become part of that investigation by the State Medical Examiner's Office?
yes,
Showing you what has been marked stage 194, Your Honor, is a report from Dr. Hartnett McCann. It is 1, 2, 3, 4. It is a total of 5 pages. This report is already in evidence as part of Dr. Hayes's report. However, that was in black and white, and this is a color version of the same report that is a part of the previous exhibit.
And I have no objection to its introduction, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Court will accept the report into evidence as well as the number
194, Your Honor.
194. Thank you.
And Attorney Gavin, is all right if the witness has a copy of her report?
Of course.
Fair first witness, Your Honor.
You may. Thank you.
thank you.
Is the monitor on in front of you, Doctor?
It's on.
Showing you up on the monitor as well as the screen. You generally recognize what this is,
Yes,
and what do you recognize it to be?
this is the portion of the skull that was submitted to me after Dr. Hayes completed his autopsy. And
I guess my first question preliminarily is, do you recognize stage 194 as being the report that you produced?
yes, this is my report.
And on the last page of this report, do you see your signature on the bottom of this page?
Yes,
So you started to tell us there is a photograph identified as figure 1 in this report. Can you explain to us, first of all, what we are seeing here in figure 1?
yes, this is the portion of the skull that was submitted to me after Dr. Hayes completed his autopsy. This photo also reflects my reconstruction after I had cleaned the bone from the soft tissue. So this image shows the top view of the reconstructed portion of the cranium, as well as the additional cleaned fragments that weren't reconstructed to the main piece.
Okay, so you just gave us a lot of detail. Can you sort of break it down, first of all, into steps that you perform? So is it fair to say, where I place my highlighter, is that the reconstructed skull that you created?
Yes,
Did it come to you in a series of other pieces?
yes, it did.
When you received it, the pieces, where my highlighter is, which is the left side of the picture in figure 1, can you tell us the process that you undertook to reconstruct it?
After I receive the portion that was submitted to me, I would clean it first using water and a degreaser to help remove the soft tissue so I could adequately see the
Yes.
bone.
How you
Once
feeling, love?
the specimen is dried, I usually just leave it to air dry. Once it's dried, I use a cyanoacrylate, which is a super glue, to reconstruct the pieces of the skull, as you will see here.
Taking you to figure number 2, can you tell us what are we seeing here in figure 2?
This is the right side of the portion of the skull after it's been cleaned and reconstructed. In the top right of the photograph, you can see an arrow and a word, if you can't read that, that says anterior. That means where that highlighter is, yes, is towards the front of the head, the face end. And on the left side of the photo, that is the back of the head. And we are, again, looking at the right side of the head.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, this would be the part of the skull towards the face,
Correct,
and this would be the back side of the skull.
correct.
So, and we are looking at the skull from the right side of the decedent's head.
Correct.
Now I see in this exhibit, there are letters A, B, C, D, and E in this exhibit, figure number 2. Can you tell us what the significance of each of those letters are?
Each of those letters indicates a different impact to this side of the cranium. The letters, while they do go in order from A through E, do not imply the sequence of the impacts. It is just how I describe them in my notes and report. So there's no order of sequence.
And how exactly can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury exactly how you go about determining effectively
You,
that
Kate and
each one
Teresa.
of these A through
Yep.
E here is a separate and distinct impact?
I look for features on the bone that tell me these are separate impacts. Typically, I look for areas of impact that have what I call circular or concentric, which are rounded fracture margins. I look for areas of depressed bone, meaning the bone is pushed inwards. I also look for radiating fractures or fractures that emanate out from a particular point.
So at least, so for now in figure 2, have you identified areas A, B, C, D, and E, in your opinion, are each separate and distinct impact marks?
Yes, each of those that are
Awesome.
labeled with a letter are separate impacts.
Going to figure 3, can you tell us what are we seeing here in your report?
This is the back of the head. This is what I call the posterior of the skull. So we are looking directly at the back of a person's head.
And again, similar lettering E, F, and G. Now, we saw E on the previous exhibit. Is this a second E or is this a continuation from a different angle of the same E?
The E is the same in both figures.
And again, in the back of the head, then impact points that are new are F and G.
Correct.
Next page of your report, figure 4. Can you tell us what we are looking at here?
Figure 4 is the left side of the head. So again, in the top left of the photo, there is an arrow pointing towards the anterior or front. That is the face area. And on the right side of the photo, that is the posterior or back. So we are looking at the left side of the head.
And again, there are additional lettering in this particular figure of G and H. Again, do you have an opinion with regard to those as being points of impact?
Yes, G and H are each separate points of impact.
And you start to talk about the several sort of fractures, in terms of what you're looking for. Is G a relatively a good example of the type of visual fractures that you're seeing.
G is an example of a linear fracture, yes.
And again, H in terms of,
That's what the record.
is H depicting again another what seems to be a fracture line?
There is more than one fracture line depicted at H. You can see it kind of looks like an upside down Y-shaped at the top of the letter H. So that is what I would consider a focal point of impact, where there was an impact at the area where those fracture lines intersect and radiate out from that spot.
Kate said, "My Lord, he truly is a monster. Who could do this to another human, let alone your boyfriend or girlfriend?" Right. And I can only imagine how fearful she must have been in that moment. I mean, I had a comment from somebody who said that they knew Jose Morales and the family from back in the day, and that PCP was his drug of choice. So I'm assuming she knew he did that and was judging by her toxicology not having anything in it. Maybe she was trying to help him get better. And, they've got a child together and she trusts him, obviously. I mean, he's been going over there every weekend for 3 years. And then to have him, flip out and just lose it like that, and you're scared to death and you don't know what's going on and you can't calm him down and you can't make him stop. And I can't imagine. And my heart goes out to her family. I mean, the baby's still missing. It's horrific.
Showing you figure 5
Right.
on 4th page. Can you tell us what we are looking at here?
I agree. AM.
This is a closer view of impact A, which was on the front right side of the head. And it shows the what I would describe as ovoid or rounded shape, and the bone
Hey,
is
Rhonda.
depressed or pushed inward. There is also a little bit of hair embedded inside that fracture.
And again, there's a scale that appears to be on the bottom and on the
Hey,
right
Lou.
side of the photograph. Do you put that there to provide scale to somebody looking at this photograph?
Yes,
And is that a round, depressed mark, which you have referred to approximately 1 inch in diameter?
I actually use centimeters, and that scale is in centimeters, and it is about 1.5 centimeters by 1 centimeter.
So going back now to figure 1 on the first page, I believe your testimony was this is sort of the final reconstruction of the skull. Was my understanding correct?
Yes,
And that's on the left.
correct.
And that's what you in your subsequent figures in your report were referring to, where you were labeling all of the letters.
Yes,
Now on the right, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, what appeared to be pieces that are separate on the side of the photograph. What are those?
those are fragments of the cranium that I could not reconstruct due to some areas of missing bone, especially on the right side and the back part of the cranium.
So after you constructed then the fractures that you were able to piece back together on the complete skull on the left, there were some pieces that you couldn't put back into the skull
Correct.
because you were missing bone, but to be able to show where they came from.
Correct.
So doctor, based upon your reconstruction of the skull of Christine Holloway with regard to case number 19-21392, do you have an opinion based upon a reasonable degree of medical or scientific certainty as to the
Right.
minimum
Genevieve.
number of
That's what I was going to say.
impacts that caused these fractures on the skull of Christine Holloway?
Yes, there's a minimum of 8 blunt impacts to the cranium.
And in terms of being at a minimum, is there the possibility that there were more?
Yes, there is the possibility that there were more, especially on the right side where I do have some areas of missing bone.
Is it due to the lack of bone that you cannot make a conclusive determination as to where bone is missing?
It's possible that some pieces were not recovered or were not submitted to me. And also the autopsy cut separates out part of the bone that sometimes I can't reconstruct it fully. So there may be an absence of bone in that area where there's more than the impacts that I have described in the photos.
So you describe a minimum of 8 impacts.
Correct.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Hi, doctor.
Good morning.
How are you? Just one question for you. Dr. Hartnett McCann, despite your reconstruction efforts of the skull, which was introduced as the exhibit, you can't tell us how Christine Holloway sustained those injuries. Is that correct?
I cannot.
Thank you. No other questions.
Anything further from the state?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may exit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please watch your step across the floor.
Thank you.
Does the state wish to call any additional witnesses?
At this time, Your Honor, the state of Connecticut would rest its case.
All right, Attorney Gavin,
Your Honor, I have a substantive motion for the court. At this
I understand. All right, court is going to ask the jury to please exit the courtroom. So Madam Clerk, if you would please show the jury to the jury deliberations room at this time.
So now we're waiting on a verdict, I suppose. There's still more to watch.
Thank you. May I see counsel sidebar, please, just for a moment?
Well, we might not be streaming real long today. I'm going to go over that video that I made last night and talk to y'all about it, but we might be on verdict watch.
judgment of acquittal pursuant
Hey,
to
Norma.
Connecticut Practice Book Section 42-40
I agree.
and 42-41. The basis for the motion, Your Honor, is the evidence that was submitted by the state at this juncture, and they have rested, does not reasonably permit a finding of guilty to the charge of murder or tampering with evidence. So it is the request of defense that the court grant motions in regard to both those charges. Thank you.
Attorney Stein?
Yes, Your Honor. Again, pursuant to law, the state would oppose the defense's motion for judgment of acquittal, looking at the evidence that's been presented in a light most favorable to the state. I believe that the state has provided a preponderance of evidence together with the reasonable inferences that the trier of fact may draw from that to believe that the defendant is otherwise guilty of murder and tampering with physical evidence.
All right, Attorney Stein. All right, in ruling on a motion for judgment of acquittal, the trial judge must determine whether a rational trier of fact could find the crime proven beyond a reasonable doubt. A determination of whether the evidence could reasonably support a finding of guilty beyond a reasonable doubt does not require a court to ask itself whether it believes that the evidence at trial established guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Instead, the relevant evidence or question is whether after viewing the evidence in a light most favorable to the prosecution, any rational trier of fact could find the essential elements of a crime beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, I did, of course, anticipate the defendant's motion as it is commonly made at the close of the prosecution's case in chief. Wherefore, I did receive and review pattern jury instructions. I took notes during the entirety of the state's case in chief. I did receive and review those notes. Additionally, I took a look at the statutes and reviewed the elements relevant to the two crimes charged in this case. And after careful consideration of the evidence presented at trial and the logical inferences that can be drawn from the facts, the court does find that the jury reasonably could conclude that all elements of the crime of each count, that is the crime of murder and the crime of tampering with evidence, could be proved. Therefore, the court's decision is to deny the defendant's motion for judgment of acquittal at this time. So after finding the jury reasonably could conclude that those crimes could be charged, the next step, Attorney Gavin, would be for the defense to decide if it wishes to present a case.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, at this juncture, I represent to the court that we are presenting evidence. Per our agreement yesterday, I have Dr. Frazer here at 11 o'clock, and I would inquire of the court if this would be an appropriate time to canvass my client regarding his election to testify. I don't know if you want to do that now or you want to do it after Dr. Frazer.
Okay, so why don't we do that now? I can talk to the defendant if he is in a position to make that determination. Why don't we do that? And I will revisit it just briefly before the defendant takes the stand, if in fact that is his choice, once I canvass him. All
May I
right,
just briefly be heard, Your Honor?
certainly.
As of this moment in time, it is the state's position there is no evidence of PCP usage in the evidence. Dr. Frazer being called first is an accommodation to the defense because Dr. Frazer has scheduling issues which will make him unavailable tomorrow and thereafter for a continued period of time. So I believe the court is going to canvass the defendant because without subsequent testimony in front of this jury with regard to PCP usage, Dr. Frazer's testimony would not be relevant to the proceeding. So with regard to this is
I think so, Cara.
accommodation and a failure by the defendant to be able to link evidence, the state will move to strike.
Attorney Gavin?
Your Honor, I appreciate the accommodation. Obviously, we accommodated the state during the course of the trial to take witnesses out of order, and Attorney Stein's representation regarding scheduling is correct. I've advised my client that, and we'll go through the canvas, but just to respond to that issue, I've advised my client that the state is accommodating us having Dr. Frazer testifying, and that Dr. Frazer's testimony potentially would be stricken if Mr. Morales doesn't want to testify. But Mr. Morales has made it clear to me, and the whole case has been structured in anticipation of his testimony. So if the court, if you think this is a reasonable time, I'd appreciate if we could go through the canvas regarding his election to testify.
All right, so the court just wants to document and thank counsel for their reaching an agreement relative to accepting the expert testimony outside of the nature in which it would generally be presented without argument on the court as to the issue. So I appreciate that. If something changes, the court would entertain motions and those would be decided at that time. Having said all of that and having you both document the record, the court is in a position to canvass Mr. Morales if Mr. Morales is ready. But at this point in time, what is your understanding of Mr. Morales's intent to testify here?
He's prepared to testify today.
Okay.
I just have to put a couple of minor points on the record. He's been advised that his testimony is memorialized and that his testimony can be used for any subsequent prosecution if the state went ahead and decided to do that. So he's aware of that fact. He's indicated to the defense team that he wants his opportunity to go ahead and present his version to the jury, which he is entitled to, and he's prepared to go ahead and do today. I've explained to him the risks of going ahead and doing that he's under no constitutional obligation to go ahead and testify at this juncture, and that no adverse inference would be drawn from the fact if he elected not to testify, but he clearly wants to testify. It's my intention, Your Honor, subsequent to the testimony of Dr. Frazer, to go ahead and put Mr. Morales on and have him testify at that juncture.
All right, thank you. All right, so Mr. Morales, I am going to address you personally at this time pursuant to our case law, just to make sure that you have an understanding as to your constitutional rights and that you've made the decision knowingly and voluntarily and having had the appropriate information. I do accept your attorney's representations on the record, but I have to go through some of that information with you individually. So Mr. Morales, after consulting with Attorney Gavin, is it your decision to testify in this trial?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, do you understand that you are not obligated to testify, sir?
I understand.
Do you further understand that if you chose not to testify, the fact finder will be instructed to not draw any adverse inferences from your choice not to testify?
I understand.
Do you also understand that your right to testify or to not testify belongs to you alone and that no one, including your counsel, can prevent you from testifying or force you to testify?
I understand.
And do you feel that you've had enough time and opportunity to discuss this decision with counsel, including any strategy concerning your right to testify or to not testify in your case, and the advantages and disadvantages of testifying?
I have.
And have you understood the information as it was provided to you
Hey,
by your
Melis.
attorney?
Yes.
Okay. So is it your personal decision to testify, thereby waiving your right to not testify in this case?
It is my personal decision to testify.
And you are making this decision voluntarily?
Yes, I am.
No one has forced or threatened you concerning your decision, is that correct?
That's correct.
Have you understood all of my questions?
Yes.
All right, court finds the defendant has chosen to testify and has effectively waived his right to not testify, and he has done this knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily. So that concludes the court's canvass of the defendant regarding his willingness and desire to testify in this matter.
Appreciate that, Your Honor.
All right, so my understanding is that your next witness, however, is available at the court's direction at 11 o'clock.
That's
We
correct.
were not sure how long this process would take this
That's-
morning.
That's correct.
So we are going to go ahead. We will break until about 11:10, give you some time to make sure that your witness is here, get everything in order, including your exhibits, other documents, et cetera, if that's applicable. So the court is going to recess between now and 11:10. The court does hope to come back on the record at 11:10 a.m. Thank you.
Thank
Court
you very
stands in
much, Your Honor.
recess.
Okay. So it's 11:01 now. I've just pulled it up on my phone. So because we started a little later, it shouldn't be that long that we have to wait. I'm going to go ahead and play this video that I put out last night about a motion Stefan's attorneys filed that left me with a lot of questions. So let's check this out. It's in reference to the court date at the end of the month. It's only a 3-minute video. I hate hearing myself. You do? Well, let me
Hey,
know.
y'all, we've
Hey,
got a
Amy.
document to look at. This is a document that was just filed by Stefan's attorney to have the hearing for April 23rd continued. And I found it real interesting. So let's see what it says. This is the state of Florida as the plaintiff versus Stephan Michael Stearns, the defendant. It is a motion to continue the suppression hearing. It reads, comes now the defendant, Stephan Michael Stearns, by and through the undersigned attorney pursuant to Florida Rule of Criminal Procedure 3.190 subsection F, and moves this court to enter its order granting a continuance of the above styled cause. As grounds in support of this motion, the defense would show 1.
Cara said, I'm pretty sure I commented, but I think it has to do with that CSAM ring I sent you info on. I've heard that, and I've heard that there could be some federal charges coming as far as his dark web activity and the CSAM rings and things like that going on in that area. I wasn't sure what to think about it when I read it. I was like, what have they got? I think those are all interesting and valid possibilities, possible speculations. The one that was busted, one of the people busted was from Kissimmee, right? And then we have the chorus teacher. I've just put more info on him on my Patreon. It's also on Hio's Patreon too. And excuse me, the secretary at that school was in some CSAM stuff too.
That defense's motion to suppress hearings are scheduled to be heard on April 23rd, 2025 at 2 p.m. 2, that pretrial conference is to be heard at the same time as the scheduled motions to suppress. 3, the defendant has been charged with 60 counts of various allegations involving sexual battery, lewd and lascivious molestation, and possession of child pornography. 4, a conviction on any of the above styled counts may also serve as an aggravator in the defendant's other open case where the state is seeking the death penalty, as evidenced by the state's notice of intent to seek the death penalty filed in that case. 5, the apparent centerpiece of this prosecution stems from media obtained through a search of a phone attributed to the defendant. 6, on February 6th of 2025, the defense filed 3 suppression motions challenging this exact evidence. 7, since filing that motion, the defense has come into possession of confidential information that may impact the preservation of evidence at that hearing. 8, the defense will not have time to develop this evidence before the currently scheduled motions to suppress scheduled for hearing on April 23, 2025. 9, as such, defense is requesting to continue these hearings to be reset for a later date. 10, that this motion is filed in good faith and not for the purpose of delay. 11, the state objects to this motion to continue. Wherefore, the defense moves this court to enter its order granting a continuance in the above styled cause. And it's signed by Melissa Vickers. So the state is objecting to the motion to continue, but what have they got? Number 7, reading that again. Since filing that motion, the defense has come into possession of confidential information that may impact the preservation of evidence at that hearing. What is it? I wonder. And when will we be able to find out? Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, so, I mean, the only thing I could think of that makes the most sense is, like you guys said, the rings in the area or some kind of stuff he was involved in on the dark web. It's concerning. It's definitely concerning. I'm going to pull up the trial so that we can see just as so that we can see when they come back and, okay, no. And, we'll discuss it. Give me just a second to get this pulled up and we'll discuss what we just read. Excuse me. Chain of custody broke. It's the wording. I hadn't thought about that. You think so? So what is the chain of custody? What would that be? Let me know. Crackerjack said, and TikTok leading the way to 1 million CSAM pictures for $100. That's insane. TikTok's crazy. It really is. I stay away from that place. I don't think we'll actually see a trial this year. You know, a lot of people have said that it would be delayed. Considering that the state objects to this motion being delayed, I don't know, especially considering that the CSAM trial is supposed to start May 5th. It's supposed to be May 5th through the 15th. Now, a lot of people have said they'll probably get continuances. I don't know. I don't know if they're ready to see this done and over with. I'm not sure. Hey, Cindy, good to see you. I wonder if they have something implicating Jen too. Bonnie said, reread that last sentence. Someone in the investigation handled evidence insecurely. All right, let me pull it up. Let me pull up the document and look at it again. Hold on. Hold on just a minute. I won't pull it up since we're waiting for the trial to come back. You really think it's that simple that a cop messed up? Cara said, I listened to Gavin Fish last night, and some people there seem to think that it's possible he has other victims coming forward or that they may have found something with Jen's involvement. Interesting. Interesting. Jen of Eve said, and they may be trying to suppress information and evidence because it's being bound over to a federal case. The chain of custody would involve federal level investigation. Interesting. So the last sentence or the last bulletin point said the state objects to the motion to continue. And since filing that motion, the defense has come into possession of confidential information that may impact the preservation of evidence at that hearing. So they have something confidential that could mess up their ability to preserve evidence at that specific hearing. So I wonder what that means. Yeah, and I wonder if that plays a role in Nessa, because we do know that he had pictures of other victims. I mean, it was talked about. All kind of beastie. I mean, Jesus. There was a word in that last sentence that makes me think that. Impact the preservation of evidence. Yes. That's the wording. Sounds like chain of custody. Impact the preservation of evidence. Interesting. You think it's just a defense tactic to get a continuance? I'm wondering if they're going to get it because, like I said, trial for the CSAM is supposed to start May 5th. So, I mean, what are we continuing it for a day or two? What are we doing? What are we trying to do? And I don't know that the judge is going to let them have, I think they're allowed to have like 1 or 2 continuances, but I don't know how far they're going to push it out because I know he wants to get it over and done with. I never did TikTok as I don't want China watching me, no doubt. I don't mess with TikTok. That place is the wild, wild west. Genevieve said, I didn't watch Gavin Fish, but there's information that connects Stephen Stearns to cases in that area from a few years ago that was brought to my attention. Interesting. Cindy said they may have found Maddie on some of that Kissimmee Orlando case. Very possible. Fawny said preservation of evidence. Investigators are the one that are supposed to preserve the evidence. So that's why I think it's that. That's valid. I think all of these speculations are very possible. Look how far BK got pushed. Brian Kohburger, you mean? Yeah, TikTok can be vile. I wanted to tell you, I'm sorry. I saw that you had a nurse in there earlier and that you got a lot going on, my dear. I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm glad you got a place to come hang out, get your mind off of things. Crackerjack agrees with Cindy, and Cindy said they may have found Maddie on some of that Kissimmee Orlando case. I think so, because considering that, I think it's very possible because considering that there was 1,700 images of Madeline and there's so many predators in that area, I think it's very possible that she could be on, like, that it could have been traded to other offenders. Fawny said chain of custody breaks have absolutely acquitted cases many times before. Yeah. Crackerjack said, do they have Maddie images in the ring? We don't know. I don't know that we would know that unless they bring it to court. But there's a lot of chomos in that area. And I was talking to somebody this morning. Excuse me. And hold on. Give me just a second. I think it's weird. I know that they both work at Disney and they're right there by Disney, but they seem to go to Disney a lot and they have a lot of Disney paraphernalia in the house. Now, I'm going to be careful about what I say, but that I just find it interesting and it a little off-putting how much Disney stuff is in that house. I understand that they work there and it's like the place to go in the area, but it's expensive. Like even just for a drink or popcorn. I've never been to Disney. Unfortunately, my children, I'm not going to be able to afford to take my children to Disney. So, I don't know. They got a lot of Disney stuff and that makes me nervous. That creepo lives near Jen and sends him money is still a big question mark. Yeah, I think that is a big question mark. But I think the CSAM deep dive brought more evidence that is also a factor. Absolutely. I think it's very possible. Hold on. Okay. Jen said Indiana, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Arizona, New Mexico, Missouri, and New England CSAM cases. Oh, wow. That's a lot. Mayla's mom said, yes, it will be crazy if they actually make it to trial May 5th. Has the defense used any continuances yet? I can't remember. I don't think so. I think this is their first continuance. I think the motion got denied. The motion to continue is now set for Tuesday at 11:15 a.m. Oh, thank you for that. So let me write that down. The motion to continue is for Tuesday at 11:15. We will definitely be streaming that. Cindy said, they said they were able to identify some of the victims. Yep. The Florida resident discount is BS too. Right. Fonnie said, check out Beth Meek's interview on Gavin Fish. She explains why it happened as far as Jim being short bus, so to say. Yeah. I think I've heard about that. I don't know. Norma said it is very expensive. Yeah. Circumstantial red flags. Yeah. And that's why everyone is tight-lipped on Jim being slow, possibly. I've heard that being brought up a couple of times as well. The fact that she might not be all cognitively there and them not wanting to talk about it. Rhonda said, I went to Disney 3 times in the 90s. I bet it cost about like what your mortgage would cost when your son was a baby. Because her mental delay is protected by HIPAA and she might not know she is herself. Right. Yep. I think it was you who was telling me that. Kissimmee's only about 12 miles from Disney in Orlando. That's interesting. I don't know. It's still, I know that like I say, I know it's close by, but I still think it's like super expensive. Oh my goodness. Abellis, thank you so much for gifting 20 memberships. That was so sweet and supportive of you. My goodness, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna try to do a members only live stream this weekend, and show you guys how to do the goat's milk lotion. So I'm glad people were gifted. Let's see. Those went to Karen Bershima, This Hollowed Home Sasha Doll, Another Amy, Blue Stars, Janet Spratt, Chucker Legs, Zad, Deb Tutterow, Crunchy Frog, TJ, Teresa Clay, Rhonda R, Moth's Mommy, Darla, Miss Odie, Rachel Allen Tanks, and Miss Kimmy Akers. Thank you so much, Abellis. I really appreciate that. You're so sweet and supportive. I love you so much. Thank you. I'm going to play our Polar Express to pick y'all up on the way to Speculation Station. If you were gifted from Abellis and you are aware you were gifted, please tell her thank you. Thank you so much, Abellis. I really appreciate that. That was so sweet. I can't express to you how grateful I am for your support. That was really sweet of you. It's 11:17, and what would you know? They're not back. Mayla's mom said, I don't believe she is slow. I believe she is stupid, but not cognitively delayed. Right? Yeah, I don't know.
Morning.
Might be, Genevieve.
Good morning. All right, is the defense ready to proceed?
I am.
Oh, okay, that's right, we need the defendant.
And yes, Your Honor, we are.
All right.
So sweet. Thank you. Oh, no.
So, Madam Clerk, as soon as we have Mr. Morales present in the courtroom, we'll go ahead and bring the jury in. Okay, thank you.
I think it's to keep bacteria growth down. Anders, good to see you. All right. Make sure you've got gifting turned on, sweetheart. Hannah, Jose's going to testify. They're going to have a doctor
I'll
come
just
in,
remind council to adjust their microphones so they're straight up.
and Jose's going to testify. I know. It should be a warm, fluffy robe. I'm glad they went to people in the audience. Like, a lot of times that don't happen. Yeah, so I'm going to work on trying to figure out how to do a members only live stream to do the goat's milk lotion. And I'm going to try to make some soaps too, because I need to get some of these soaps made, especially the cow itch. The kids are getting cow itch. And I've only got 2 bars of it left. So they take a month to cure. Well, we've been going through the highlights, Anders. So I try to keep us up to date on that when we go through the highlights. So I don't think we missed much. I can't believe he's going to testify. A link for what, sweetheart? Let me know what you want a link for, sweetheart. Okay, well, I hope she has a good appointment. Oh, Rhonda, I haven't made it yet. I'm gonna make it this weekend, probably Saturday or Sunday, and because you're green, so you're a member, so it'll be a live stream that'll come up, and you'll get to go in and be part of it because you're a member.
All right, welcome back.
I got to
members of the
figure out how
jury.
to do
I
it.
would ask council to please stipulate to the presence of our jurors.
Stipulate to the presence of the jury, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, so at this time, we are ready to proceed with the defendant's case. It's my understanding that the defense is going to be presenting evidence. Attorney Gavin?
That's correct, Your Honor. May I just be excused? My witnesses in the hallway.
Certainly.
Mac Daddy's out there calling the ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Defense calls Dr. Frazer.
All right, thank you. Dr. Frazer, please come on up. Take the witness stand to remain standing. Madam Clerk will put you to oath, okay? Thank you.
Do solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give
Dr.
concerning this
Frazer.
case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, and state your business address for the record.
It's Dr. Eric Frazer, Frazer, 216 Crown Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay, thank you.
You may be seated. Thank you.
Indy, thank you. That was so sweet.
Dr.
Thank you
Frazer,
so
That
much.
microphone records. It doesn't amplify well, and
Let
there
me
are 2
see.
big fans here. So we ask all the witnesses to please keep your voice up even louder than maybe you're used to, because in the back, the gallery can't hear us from up here.
Understood.
Indy, thank you so much for that. That was so sweet and supportive of you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Aw, thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you. Dr. Frazer, I want to go through some of your background first. Do you currently hold any license within the state of Connecticut?
I'm a licensed clinical psychologist.
Okay, and tell us, what is a licensed clinical psychologist, sir?
It's a specialization in psychology that's recognized nationally in the field of clinical psychology, and that's the license that I hold and practice here in Connecticut.
Okay, and as a clinical psychologist, Do you see patients? Do you evaluate patients? What exactly do you do in your practice as a licensed clinical psychologist?
Yes, so I should also make the distinction that I have an area of expertise and specialization called forensic psychology. So I'm recognized as a clinical and forensic psychologist, which essentially encompasses what I've done for the totality of my professional career, working as an evaluator or a court-appointed
Hey, Michelle.
evaluator, and sometimes in instances like this, as an expert witness.
And the term
Right.
forensic, could you tell us what that means, please?
Yeah, forensic is an area of academic concentration in the area of psychology. People who get advanced degrees in clinical psychology can specialize in that, and then you are recognized as a clinical forensic psychologist. It's the intersection between psychology and the law. So in a day in, day out basis, the area of my work is almost always court involved in some capacity.
Doctor, let's just zip through your educational background. Do you hold a bachelor's degree?
Yes, I do.
From where?
Fordham University,
Okay, and what was that degree in, sir?
psychology.
Okay, and then did you matriculate into a master's degree?
Yes, and then a doctoral degree.
Okay, and where did you attend for your, let's start with your master's degree, sir.
That was at Miami Institute of Psychology.
Okay, and what,
I have it turned all the way up. I know it's hard to hear them, and I'm sorry about that.
when you say you got a master's, was that in clinical psychology?
Yes,
Okay, that was the concentration of the master's.
yes,
All right, and then, sir, I think you just told us that you also have a doctorate. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay, and where did you obtain the doctorate degree?
Same institution.
Same institution. Okay, and how long ago was that?
A long time, but I completed my program in 2001.
Okay.
That's when I earned my doctoral degree.
Okay, so 2025, about 24 years. Does that sound right?
At least.
Okay, that's wonderful. Doctor, do you have an appointment as a fellow at the Yale University School of Medicine?
Well, I did. That's where I completed my pre-doctoral work and my postdoctoral psychology fellowship. So the postdoctoral fellowship is a year of additional training and practice under the supervision of other professors. And then afterwards, I was fortunate to be appointed as an assistant clinical professor there as a part-time voluntary faculty, which I've maintained through the present time.
Okay, and sir, as an assistant clinical professor at the Yale School of Medicine, what do you do there for the institution?
Every training cycle, I'm appointed a psychology fellow who I provide supervision for. I provide seminars by invitation at various points during the year, and I also consult with other organizations within the institution when requested.
Do the students in the Yale School of Medicine matriculate through various programs there?
So the individuals, the graduate students that I supervise, they're essentially training to become psychologists like myself, clinical psychologists. So they are in the clinical psychology fellowship program as interns, and then some continue on as postdoctoral students. And those are the individuals that I regularly see each year.
And you've held that position, I think I heard you just say, for about 22 years. Is that correct?
Since 2003.
Okay, great. And sir, have you also served as an adjunct professor at any other institutions?
Yes.
Where?
One was at the University of Hartford, and the second was at Quinnipiac University.
Okay. Sir, do you maintain a private practice as a clinical and forensic psychologist?
Yes.
Okay, and tell us where that is and what your practice involves.
Yes, so as I testified to earlier, I routinely conduct evaluations of children, adolescents, adults in various court-involved matters. That could be in family court, could be in civil court, juvenile court, criminal court, and sometimes in probate court. So in many of those instances, I evaluate people or I consult on cases with law firms or lawyers. And then in some instances, those engagement result in my expert testimony in those courts that I described.
Thank you. Sir, have you provided expert witness testimony in the past in criminal courts?
Yes,
And how about in the civil courts,
yes,
juvenile court?
yes,
And I think you also mentioned the probate court. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, Dr. Frazer, were you retained by my office as an expert witness in the matter of State versus Jose Morales?
Yes,
Okay, and were you compensated for that, sir?
yes, for my
And-
time.
Okay, and how were you compensated?
Payment from your office.
Okay, the check didn't bounce.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. And sir, just tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what was your assignment when you were retained as an expert in this case?
Yes, so it was similar to most engagements in which I'm provided a large amount of documents to review. And in this particular assignment, specifically to focus my attention on PCP.
Okay. Now, doctor, in your professional experience, have you treated patients that have used PCP?
It was a long time ago, back when I was a predoctoral and postdoctoral psychology fellow, but treated, so that would be the treatment distinction, meaning therapy of some sort. Afterwards, I haven't done any treatment or very, very little, and not specifically with that type of, with addiction. My involvement with PCP afterwards were specifically in the context of evaluations.
So doctor, the assignment that you undertook here, this was not the first time that you became familiar with PCP use, is that correct?
No.
Okay, now we're going to go slow here. And doctor, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen jury, what is PCP?
Yeah, PCP is a very dangerous drug. It's a controlled substance.
Okay, and doctor, is PCP prescribed medication where you would go to a druggist or a pharmacy and obtain PCP?
No, it's what we would call a street drug because of its high level of danger, high level of toxicity.
And sir, is PCP what's called a controlled substance like cocaine or heroin?
Yes, and it goes
Okay.
by the name phencyclidine, but on the street, it's sometimes referred to as angel dust, things like that.
Okay. So street drugs have street names, is that fair?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. And you said things, PCP can be known as angel dust, for example, is that correct?
yes.
Okay. Now, if you know, how was PCP originally developed for what use?
Yep. So it was originally developed back in the 1950s, and it was used mostly in veterinary medicine.
Okay. And was it an anesthetic for the animals in veterinary medicine?
Yes.
Okay. And just tell us what an anesthetic is.
So technically, it was called a dissociative. It's been classified or referred to in the research as the dissociative anesthetic, which is basically a substance that basically numbs the nervous system and changes the nervous system, has effects on perception, things of that nature.
Doctor, can the ingestion of PCP cause mind-altering effects?
Yes.
Okay. And what degree?
So this particular controlled substance is well known for causing mind-altering effects, very harsh mind-altering effects, breaks in reality, loss of perceptual functioning, meaning using your perceptions, your senses accurately, correctly.
Could you
And
give us an example? I don't mean to interrupt. Could you give us an example of that?
so some of these distortions and breaks in reality that are a consequence of PCP ingestion include things like delusions. Delusions are false beliefs. It also includes symptoms like hallucinations, seeing things or hearing things that are not real. And those are essentially what we typically would see in individuals that suffer from a psychiatric illness called schizophrenia, which we broadly refer to as psychosis. So you may hear the word psychosis or a psychotic break. Those are the kinds of symptoms associated with the illness schizophrenia. But with respect to the PCP substance, those symptoms emerge when people take and ingest PCP.
Can PCP cause hallucinations,
Yes,
distorted perceptions of reality?
yes.
Can it cause distorted perceptions
I'm gonna
regarding
object at this point
sounds?
to the leading, Your Honor. He's leading the witness. The
How-
witness should
how
be
would-
able to testify as an expert from his own memory without it being led to him.
I'll withdraw the question.
All right, so the question is withdrawn. They were leading. I will go ahead and instruct you to carry on then since it was withdrawn.
Doctor, in regard to your discussion there with hallucinations, can you just indicate for ladies and gentlemen of the jury how the use of PCP can affect your ability, your auditory ability?
So PCP affects the auditory ability, essentially like I was describing before. It causes hallucinations, meaning hearing things that aren't real, that aren't actually present in that moment. So that is an example of a break with reality. Reality is what's happening in front of you.
Doctor, can PCP be ingested in a variety of ways?
Yes.
Okay, and just tell the ladies and gentlemen jury how.
So most often it's smoked, but it can also be snorted, and it can also be used, it can also be ingested through intravenous, with a needle of some sort.
Okay. Doctor, please, I'm sorry if this is repetitive. I just want you to tell us what a hallucination is.
So in general, there's the two most common types of hallucinations are auditory hallucinations, which I already discussed, and also visual hallucinations. There can be other types as well, but those are the two most common. Visual hallucinations are seeing things that aren't real. In other words, imagining that you are seeing something that isn't actually there and believing that it is there.
Sir, you indicated earlier that PCP is a dissociative drug. What does dissociative mean?
Yes. So dissociation is a clinical term, which means that you are not present in the moment. You are not actually perceiving things accurately in that moment. So it's often discussed as sort of like a phenomenon of daydreaming, except that daydreaming experience continues. That's dissociation.
Sir, can PCP be an addictive drug?
It is an addictive drug.
Okay, and tell us what addictive drug means.
Yeah. So an addictive drug essentially means that when someone ingests a substance, it has an effect on them that changes their behavior, their thinking, their feelings. And when they stop using that drug, they go through an experience in which they have desire, what we call cravings in the addiction field, to go back and use that substance to have the same effect. Over time, it develops into what we call tolerance, which means that they need a greater amount of the substance to have the same effect. And this is what leads to dependence.
And can the drug PCP come in varying strengths?
Yes.
All right. Doctor, you had mentioned this earlier. Just tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, what is schizophrenia?
Schizophrenia is a psychiatric illness, and it is primarily hallmarked by delusions, false beliefs, and hallucinations, which I already discussed.
And doctor, what's paranoia?
Paranoia is a clinical term, and it's generally a clinical term that describes people that are highly suspicious about something harmful happening to them.
Doctor, if an individual were to ingest PCP repeatedly over a 4 or 5 day period, what effect would you expect to observe?
So ingesting any substance over several days means that the substance stays in the body. It stays within the brain, depending, of course, on the frequency of use and depending, of course, on the amount of use. So repeated use over a period of days with PCP means that there would be an ongoing experience of intoxication from the substance in the body.
Okay. And doctor, what effect does the repeated use of PCP have on the user's memory?
So it's been well researched in peer-reviewed articles and hospital data and the National Institute on Drug Abuse that people who ingest PCP very frequently experience what's called PCP-induced amnesia, which means that they forget the experience. Some individuals forget the experience completely while they're intoxicated, so while the drug is in their system, and some individuals experience partial amnesia. So while they're intoxicated, they do not remember part of that period of time. They have no recollection of it.
So if I understand you correctly regarding the PCP-induced amnesia, it can be short in duration or long in duration. Is that correct?
It varies based on a couple of factors. So one of the factors would be how much of the drug was actually ingested, over what period of time, was it repeatedly ingested, and that would have varying effects depending on those factors.
And also, I take it the strength of ingesting the drug.
Objection, Your Honor. He's leaving, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Which one? Doctor, can the
Y'all
what
just
other
called it.
factors regarding the strength of the drug?
Same leading, Your Honor.
haven't finished the question.
Let me hear the whole question.
Yeah. What other factors can lead to PCP-induced amnesia?
Overruled. You may answer.
So just to clarify, and maybe reemphasize, so the
Your
PCP,
Honor, I'm going to object. It's not responsive. He's now, he's attempting to clarify. There is no question pending asking him for clarification.
All right, so
would
I
ask that
would
he answer the
instruct
question that was asked.
Attorney Stein, sustained. I would ask the witness to please answer the question.
We have the question read back by the monitor, please.
Certainly. Madam Monitor. You may answer.
so just to clarify, and maybe reemphasize, so the
Your
PCP,
Honor, I'm going to object. It's not responsive. He's now, he's attempting to clarify. There's
Take your time.
objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Doctor, can what other factors regarding the strength of the drug?
What are the factors?
No, I believe he finishes the question. If you
Yeah.
could just continue. Thank you.
Okay, you're doing fine.
Overruled. You may answer.
so
It
Yes.
was the question,
What other
PCP,
factors?
yeah. Induced, yep, amnesia.
Thank you. I know it's difficult. I apologize. Thank you.
Amnesia, it can be short in duration or long in duration, is that correct?
it varies based on a couple of factors. So one of the factors would be how much of the drug was actually ingested, over what period of time, was it repeatedly ingested, and that would have varying effects depending on those factors.
And also, I take it the strength of ingesting
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
which, Doctor, can what other factors regarding the strength of the drug?
What are the factors?
I haven't finished the question.
Let me hear the whole question.
Yeah. What other factors can lead to PCP-induced amnesia?
Overruled. You may answer.
So
You okay? All right,
Thank you.
So, doctor, the question is, what other factors can lead to PCP-induced amnesia?
there's no additional primary factors.
Okay. Just, if you could just tell us, just refresh our recollection.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to refreshing recollection. He's answered the question.
All right, so Attorney Stein, I understand we're not going to refresh our recollection, but Attorney Gavin, I'm going to sustain the objection to the extent of the formal question.
Doctor, what's the term chronic mean?
Chronic means for an enduring or significant period of time.
Okay. And doctor, can individual users develop PCP dependence?
Yes, they can, and they frequently do because of its strong dependence factors, meaning that people become addicted to it very easily and very quickly.
Great. Sir, what is acute PCP intoxication?
Acute PCP intoxication occurs once the substance is ingested, and the intoxication has a number of symptoms and features associated with it, such as agitation, aggression, psychotic symptoms like I described, such as paranoid thinking or other delusional thinking, hallucinations like I already described, partial or full amnesia for part of the period of intoxication and sometimes thereafter.
Just about done, doctor. Doctor, you told us that you undertook some research in regard to PCP-related amnesia. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and just tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what did your research disclose, sir?
So the research on substance abuse in general and PCP more specifically is pretty abundant. There's a lot of research that's constantly going on over many, many decades. And the research that I reviewed essentially described what I testified to about today, and specifically about the symptoms that I described today, and that this has been documented in research-based studies, in hospital patients, and that it's a consistently seen as an outcome of PCP intoxication. In other words, it's not just the people that I have seen, that I have evaluated, or that I have been professionally involved with, that there is a collective group of professionals, research scientists, practitioners who have documented and published the same kinds of findings.
And doctor, what's the definition of amnesia?
Amnesia is a form of not remembering, so it's memory loss.
And can PCP users, as you described, have amnesia, and can that be restored over time?
So amnesia is not generally restored over time. Think of it like a tape recorder. The mind is not a perfect tape recorder, and things that are not remembered generally remain that way. And if they are remembered, they're fragmented memories.
Hey, Southern
Thank
Cats.
you. I have no other questions. Attorney Stein may have some questions for you.
Jose's going to testify.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask for just a 10-minute recess so
What?
I've left some materials in my office too. I'd like to get some exhibits as well.
Certainly,
So
that's fine, that's fine.
Oh my
All right, so the
gosh.
court's going to stand in recess for 10 minutes. Thank you.
We literally just came back. God almighty. Y'all are ridiculous. Like the whole time that they were gone, you didn't get your stuff that you needed? Good Lord. Yeah, absolutely freaking ridiculous. All right, let's look at highlights. Let's see if there's any more. I think we looked at all of the highlights from Lori's. Let's look for Brian Kohburger highlights. We'll look at this one.
Our request is that the court not allow the state to label him in testimony as a psychopath or a sociopath.
Brian Kohburger's lawyers and prosecutors in a marathon hearing over evidence ahead of his August trial, and the judge was not holding back.
But you've made some serious accusations against the state of hiding evidence, and yet you've provided no factual basis, zero, that evidence existed.
And prosecutors are firing back at the defense.
We have a lot better aggravating evidence than the fact that he has level 1 autism.
I go through some of the new details that we've learned about the case.
Yeah, they are. Okay, they're going to break for a nap later.
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. It was a long day in court for Brian Kohburger, his lawyers, and prosecutors as they argued over what evidence the jury would hear at his trial this summer. Kohburger's lawyers and prosecutors have filed a number of motions discussing everything from Kohburger's car and cell phone records, a surviving roommate's description of a man with bushy eyebrows, Kohburger's Amazon records, his autism diagnosis, and whether the death penalty should be a possible punishment for him. Kohburger's lawyers say he maintains his innocence in the murders of Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle at a home near the University of Idaho campus in Moscow in November of 2022. Now, we learned some new things about the case at this hearing. We usually do, and I'm going to go through those. But first, let's listen to some of the arguments. Kohburger's lawyers have asked Judge Hippler to bar prosecutors from labeling him a psychopath or a sociopath. Here's Ann Taylor.
So we've heard that in the Stephen Stearns case too, where they barred them from saying words like that about Stephen. Oh, look, a squirrel. Oh, look, a squirrel. Good to see you. Can Judge H give some classes on how to maintain a courtroom, please? I would love for that to happen. I mean, I think we're both in the same mindset on that one because it's just a bit much at this point. Like, you had the whole time that he was getting that doctor ready.
And you didn't get your shit together. And then, Lord, I don't want to jinx it, but I'm hoping that we can go straight into the testimony of Jose after the cross of the doctor. Like, I'm hoping that they'll go ahead and do that and then just break for lunch and let them come back and deliberate or whatever. But either way.
Taylor.
If that's allowed to happen, then Mr. Kohburger is colored with an opinion or a way the jury will view him that is unfair. And our request is that the court not allow the state to label him in testimony as a psychopath or a sociopath, because any kind of testing is unreliable. That would relate to, or that would become problematic within the rules of evidence to do so, and the inflammatory nature of those kinds of labels would.
I'm not aware of any testing that has been done that has reached that conclusion. Am I missing something?
You are not missing anything. There has not been any testing. There has not been any labeling.
Now, a lot of people were confused by this request. Why is she asking for this? Ann Taylor said it was simply preventative, but prosecutors said they weren't going to use those words anyway. Here's Judge Hippler.
With respect to the use of terms psychopath or sociopath, I do understand that there is no evidence that the defendant specifically has been tested and found to be with that diagnosis or personality disorder, if you will. And I understand the state is not intending to, at this point, seek to attach that label. Absent evidence, competent forensic evidence, if you will, qualified expert evidence, and I haven't worked all the way through penalty phase, and I suppose that could come up in penalty phase of things. But for now, certainly for the guilt phase, innocence phase of the trial, I am ordering that the state and its witnesses not use those two terms where they're equivalents.
I want to take just a moment to tell you about Upside, the sponsor of today's Law and Crime YouTube takeover. Upside is a great free app that gets you cash back on things like gas, groceries, and restaurants. This is real cash back. It's money that appears in your Upside app that you could transfer straight into your bank account. I've used Upside when I go to Dunkin' Donuts for a cup of tea, which I do pretty often. I claimed an offer for Dunkin' on the app. I paid as usual and followed the steps, and I got cash back. It's so easy. You can also use Upside at places like Shell, Exxon, Chipotle, Taco Bell, and that's just to name a few. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on your screen and use our promo code LC Takeover to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon.
My daughter came in. All right. We're still waiting on court to come back. Sorry, y'all.
Photographs or videos of the decedents and the state of the crime scene. This
I don't either, Rhonda.
I would imagine from what I've seen, some of those photographs are particularly graphic, but make no mistake, these murders, whoever committed them, were brutal and were horrific. And so I suspect that the evidence will reflect that. Now, if it comes to cumulative evidence, or perhaps some that are unnecessarily graphic, we can address that on a case-by-case basis.
Now, here's something new that we learned about the details of a traffic stop involving Brian Kohburger on August 21st, 2022. This happened about 2 miles from the King Road house the night before classes started at the University of Idaho. Prosecutors want the jury to see that traffic stop to show Kohburger in his car, but the defense disagrees.
In this video, things that make it more prejudicial than probative are that it provides presence in Moscow. It is at night. It is a visual of the car that is not just the make and model. It is Mr. Kohburger's statement that he doesn't think state seatbelts provide much in the way of safety. Mr. Kohburger's question about why they need his phone number. Mr. Kohburger's question about how the officer reacts when people lie to him about wearing a seatbelt. If the court allows this evidence in, the state has the ability to use this to make many other points beyond identity. And the jury would have the ability to potentially seek to ask to rewatch the video and draw other conclusions that we are worried about, such as I mentioned, him being at night, not wanting to, it being at night, him not wanting to give his phone number, which could be construed.
I was eating. Rhonda, why do you think he's innocent? And Hannah, I really appreciate you respectfully disagreeing and being respectful about it. I don't have a green thumb. I try, but sometimes I can get, sometimes I can't get stuff to grow. But thank you for the compliment, Crackerjacks. Sadly, I feel Christine has not had good representation from the prosecutor. I agree. AM. You have to watch the complete trial. Abella said, been awake since 3. It's 9 here. I'm fading. It's me, not the company. Oh, well, you got to take a nap, sweetheart.
As he wants to hide his identity.
Good morning.
Now, we knew about this traffic stop and requested the video. It's the only.
Miss King of anything, no, they're on a break. The defense had a doctor come up to testify about PCP use, and they had a break to get the doctor ready, and then the prosecution asked for another break so they could get information from their office. And then after that, Jose himself is supposed to testify. So that should be interesting.
Only one involving Kohburger that's never been released. Prosecutors simply won't give it up to the public. Bill Thompson argued the jury should see this video.
Just because the defendant doesn't like the fact that we can prove who he is, that we can prove what car he's driving, that we can prove what his phone number is, that we can prove his address. I mean, those are all things that tie together to connect the defendant to the homicides. Just because they don't like that isn't a basis to object to it.
Now, Judge Hippler said certain aspects of the video are concerning, like Kohburger asking police why they need his phone number. So stay tuned for a ruling on that video. Kohburger's lawyers also argued their motion to keep the surviving roommate, DM, from using the words bushy eyebrows to describe a man she saw walking through the King Road house, which is how this selfie of Brian Kohburger came to light. He took it 6 hours after the homicides occurred. Prosecutors say it shows his eyebrows that morning. Kohburger's lawyers say DM's account is unreliable for many reasons.
She described herself as, quote,
that selfie was taken 6 hours later. That's interesting. And the eyebrows are very bushy.
Probably very drunk. And given the amount of alcohol she told law enforcement about consuming the entire day, that makes sense. She started with champagne mimosas in the morning, then White Claws 9 to 10 throughout the day. Then that night before she got home, she was involved in a drinking game and drank Borg, which is hard alcohol and flavoring. Her degree of attention, given this, supports unreliability. Factor 3, the accuracy of the description. Her description is that she saw a person wearing all black, not insanely tall. She doesn't know if she saw lips and nose. She is certain he is white. She never mentions eyebrows herself initially. The person who asked about eyebrows was law enforcement.
Now, Kohburger's lawyer said that DM told detectives that she saw Xana Kernodle at some point and thought she was simply passed out from drinking too much.
So we're going to pause that there and go back to trial now. They are back. They are back in the courtroom. So let's go. All right. Glad they finally got their poop in a scoop. I've never heard of Borg either, except for the eggs on that show about outer space. Oh, how sweet. Basil's eating his seaweed.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Council, please stipulate to the return of our jurors.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Attorney Stein, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good, well, still good morning, Dr. Frazer. How are you?
Morning.
So I want to start off just by going back to starting with your qualifications. You are a psychologist, is that correct?
Clinical psychologist.
So that's because you don't have a PhD, you have a PSYD, is that what it is?
Well, my license is in clinical psychology, which is recognized by the state of Connecticut, and my doctoral degree, the actual diploma, is a doctoral degree of psychology.
Okay, but that is a PhD degree, right? You are not a medical doctor.
I am not a medical doctor.
Thank you. And in fact, a medical doctor with the background that you have would be a psychiatrist. Is that right?
Could be.
And in fact, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who is able to prescribe medication. Is that right?
Hey, bad
Objection to
girl.
the form of the question and the relevancy.
Cross-examination as to his qualifications.
Should I just finish? I don't mean to
Hold
stop.
on, Attorney Stein.
Can I just be heard in regard to the objection?
Certainly.
What somebody is a psychiatrist has no relevance here. The doctors testified in regard to his personal credentials and his licensure, and what somebody else's degree is in is irrelevant. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, so Attorney Stein,
Yes, Your Honor. It goes to credibility. It goes to.
I don't want to, I'm not going to ask you to dispute it in front of the jury. I'm going to sustain an objection relative to his understanding of a psychiatrist. We have a psychologist on the stand.
Is a psychologist able to prescribe medication?
No.
Is a psychiatrist able to prescribe medication?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance in regard to what a psychiatrist can do. He's not a psychiatrist.
Your
I'll
Honor,
allow that question.
is a psychiatrist who is a medical doctor able to prescribe medication?
Yes.
So, what you testified to on direct was, well, withdrawn. In fact, isn't a clinical psychologist with what you are trained in psychotherapy and therapeutic techniques.
That's partially true, yes.
Okay, well, to the extent that law firms, as you say, consult with you because you are at the cross section between
Hannah, I agree.
psychology and law. Was that your testimony on direct?
As an explanation for forensic psychology, that was my answer.
So with regard then to the fact that you are paid by law firms to go into court and to render opinions within your field of specialty, isn't that correct?
I wouldn't put it that way. I don't think
It's
that's
a
accurate.
yes or no question, doctor. Can you answer it yes or no?
Objection, Your Honor. He's trying
It's
to.
a yes. It's a yes or no question.
Okay.
It's cross-examination, Your Honor.
I'm going to instruct the witness to answer the question. It is a yes or no. You can answer yes or no at this point in time.
Do you need me to repeat the question, doctor?
Please.
So you indicated on direct that you are retained by law firms to go into court to testify as an expert within the area in which you are qualified to testify. Is that correct? Yes or no?
No, that's not an accurate representation of my testimony.
A simple no without the further explanation, doctor, on the yes or no question. If I ask you for further clarification.
I'm objecting to Attorney Stein directing a witness here. That's.
All right,
Really
sustained. Ask your questions, counsel.
I'm going to ask
The prosecution is being rather angry and argumentative.
the court for an instruction once again to not
Yeah.
go beyond the question that's asked.
So I'm going to ask the jury to step out for a moment.
Of course you fucking are.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably going to be after lunch before we get to hear Jose, knowing her. Word of mercy. Prosecution is being an asshole, though, and this is the first witness the defense has called, and like only other than Jose himself.
If the witness step out as well, Your Honor, or?
Oh, no, the witness is going to stay. So my instruction to the witness outside the presence of the jury, sir, you may be seated. I appreciate that. Is that if you are able to respond to the question as a yes or no, then respond yes or no. If you believe the question does not call for a yes or no response, or you're unable to respond, then that's different. We're not going to force you into responding to a question. You can seek clarification or just ask that the question be restated. Attorney Stein,
Yes, Your
if you're
Honor.
going to ask a question that you believe requires a yes or no answer, make sure that it requires a yes or no answer, and it's not a compound question. And also, when we are discussing objections and whether or not we are going to answer that objection, let's please keep the tone professional in front of the jury. I would appreciate that. Let's not interrupt one another and allow the court please to make a decision. And also, let's please be careful with speaking objections and narratives when we're responding to objections while we're in the presence of the jury. Thank you, counsel. You may be seated.
Lala, he's
Madam Clerk,
hangry.
please bring the jury
Good to
back
see you,
in.
love. Lala said he's hangry. He needs a Snickers. You're tall, Hannah. Yeah,
Thank you. Welcome back.
I agree, Rhonda.
Thank you. Seat. Please stipulate to the return of our jurors.
Yes, Your Honor.
Stipulate, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, so I am going to strike any question that was pending. If there was a question pending, I'm going to ask Attorney Stein to please ask his next question of the witness.
Did you state on direct, doctor, that you consult with law firms as an expert to testify in the field that you are an expert in?
Yes.
My question to you, doctor, is how much of your practice is committed to providing expert opinion to defense-minded law firms?
For criminal matters, most of it.
How about a number, please, doctor, percentage?
I don't keep track of cases by number. I can't answer it better that way.
Well, let me ask it the other way then, doctor. How many times have you testified as an expert witness for any governmental entity, whether it's a state's attorney's office, whether it's a district attorney's office? How many times?
Once.
One time. How many times have you testified as an expert for defense-related law firms?
Probably about 50 times.
So this private practice that you maintain outside of your clinical teaching assignments is almost completely dependent upon law firms for your expert opinion.
That's not accurate.
Okay. So now,
Yep.
you indicated, you started to talk to us about PCP. And I believe that you said to the defense, when Attorney Gavin was asking you, that you've been in private practice, or at least postgraduate degree, for approximately 22 years. Am I right?
Since 2022.
2022, so 22 to 23 years. Is my math correct?
Sounds reasonable.
And with regard to that, you told these people earlier, did you not, that you haven't done any clinical work with PCP-related patients in 22 or 23 years. Is that what you told them?
Well,
It's a yes or no question, please, doctor. Is that what you told them? Yes or no?
Your Honor, can I be instructed how to respond since I can't respond to the question this way?
If that was your, if you do know whether or not that was your testimony, yes or no?
That was not my testimony, no.
When was the last time, doctor, that you clinically worked with a PCP intoxicated patient?
Never.
Never.
Ooh, that's not good.
Dr. Frazer, do you have withdrawn? You told us you are not a medical doctor. Is that correct?
Objection.
Overruled.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, I testified that I'm not a medical doctor.
Do you hold any other degrees, any special training that you
I'll let
received
go.
in toxicology?
No.
Yeah.
So you came in to talk to us today, to these people, about what you know about PCP. As part of what you consulted, did you consult the DSM-5 Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition?
Hannah, this is the prosecution, so it's the cross-examination of the defense. They came on to talk about he came on to talk about PCP usage for the defense.
No.
Okay. You would agree with me that the DSM-5, as it's known, is sort of the primary reference for people who engage in your profession.
It's one of many references.
You would agree with me that in order to ultimately obtain some type of a diagnostic criteria, that psychologists and psychiatrists would consult the DSM-5 or earlier versions of it to see if their diagnosis comports to the recognized criteria. You would agree with that?
When rendering a diagnosis, yes. And also the International Classification of Disease.
Thank you.
That's another manual.
Thank you for that additional answer. With regard to the DSM-5, would you agree with me, in order for a clinician to withdraw, that the diagnostic criteria for PCP, phencyclidine intoxication, that they list various diagnostic criteria? Would you agree with me that that is contained within the DSM-5?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that the criteria include such things as nystagmus?
Yes.
Nystagmus is some type of an eye movement that someone is able to observe a person who is in phencyclidine intoxication.
Yes.
Hypertension or tachycardia, is that one of the diagnostic criteria?
It can be.
How about numbness or diminished response to pain?
Yes.
How about ataxia?
Could be.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what ataxia is, please.
It's a physiological response.
In what way?
Jose is going to take the stand.
It's essentially a physiological response that results in a problem with the central nervous system.
Dr. Frazer, isn't it true that ataxia is poor muscle control causing clumsy movement and can affect walk and balance, hand coordination, speech, swallowing, and eye movement? Isn't that what ataxia is?
All of those are possible.
How about dysarthria?
I'm not familiar with that in the research.
How about muscle rigidity? Is that one of the diagnostic criteria?
Sometimes that's called catatonia.
Okay. So how would then muscle rigidity differ then from seizure or coma?
With a seizure or coma, there's a loss of consciousness that's usually associated with that. With muscle rigidity, that doesn't necessarily happen.
So muscle rigidity, just by using the terms, would seem to indicate someone who is in PCP intoxication would be very tight, very rigid, inflexible. Isn't that muscle rigidity?
It's possible.
And isn't it also true that the DSM-5 indicates that laboratory testing is useful in determining a person on PCP because it can be detected in their system for up to 8 days?
That's possible.
So many of the things that you talked about, Doctor, on direct, the withdrawn. Doctor, would you agree with me that intoxicants, by their general nature, any intoxicant, reduces inhibition?
Yes,
It impairs judgment.
generally.
It can increase confidence.
In some instances.
So-called beer muscles, right? You've heard that term before, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It can impact mood, sometimes wildly.
I testified about that earlier.
You can be euphoric 1 minute and then irritable and depressed the next.
That's possible.
It can create negative interactions with people while a person is intoxicated.
That's common.
It can enhance negative feelings and emotions that people may have.
That's possible.
So let's explore that one for a second. So if I'm angry with somebody and I become intoxicated, my anger may become enhanced beyond simple what the moment called for. Would you disagree with that?
Well, I already testified earlier that aggression is a symptom and feature of PCP intoxication.
Is there a reason you don't want to answer the question that I asked you?
Objection, Your Honor.
My question
Sustained.
to you, doctor, was, can it enhance a feeling that is otherwise a benign feeling? Does the alcohol or drugs enhance those negative feelings?
It's possible.
And would you agree with me that intoxicants as a general category have the ability to impair memory?
That's possible.
People can become blacked out on a vast amounts of different substances while they are under the influence of the substance.
That happens to some people.
So that this disassociated amnesia that you talk about is not unique to PCP.
It can happen with other substances.
Let's talk about some of those other substances, Doc. How about cannabis?
At high amounts, it's possible.
So again, is cannabis intoxication covered in the DSM-5?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that the diagnostic criteria contained in the DSM-5 under section 292.0 includes the following? Irritability, anger, and aggression is the #1 criteria for cannabis intoxication.
Objection.
Overruled.
So I haven't refreshed myself with all of the pages of the DSM, so I
May I
can't
approach
answer
the
that
witness,
question.
please?
You may.
Would looking at the DSM-5 refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Let me know when you've refreshed your recollection, please.
We sure did, bad girl, and I think that's where he's going. He's putting up a good prosecution
I believe we're over here, Doc.
on this
You're in
specifically,
cannabis withdrawal.
not the rest of the case, in my opinion.
Okay, Attorney Stein, you handed in the book. You can retreat back to your counsel's table, and when he is done, you can ask him if it refreshed his recollection, please.
I finished, Your Honor.
Hey, Emma.
Can you refresh your recollection, Doctor?
Yes.
Excuse me, sorry.
Did you fall on your way in, love? Okay,
Attorney Gavin?
I'm just waiting for the question.
Okay.
hold on when my computer decides to
With
work.
regard to,
So somebody commented. Now I haven't vetted this person. I haven't talked to this person. I don't even know who who this person is or remember their screen name. But they came in the comment section of the trial so far and stated that they know the family personally and that PCP drug use was his drug of choice, basically. So I think he meant to do it. He's seen driving back and forth in the area of Christine's house a whole bunch of times. I think his dealer might have lived in the area, and I think he chose to do it over a 4 or 5 day period. I think he intended to use the PCP. However, I don't think he intended to commit the homicide of Christine. We've talked about how there could have been something underlying and the PCP enhanced it. Like maybe he had some type of hostility towards Christine for some reason, and he was tripping and he thought he was having a trip where he killed Christine but didn't actually do it, but he actually did. I don't know. That's kind of my thought process on it. It is like their Bible, that book.
the DSM-5
The DSM-5.
criteria for diagnostic criteria for cannabis intoxication. Have you refreshed your recollection?
Your Honor, my objection is this. There's no relevancy to marijuana intoxication. This witness wasn't offered as an expert in regard to marijuana intoxication. It's irrelevant to the proceedings. Thank you.
Attorney Stein?
I'm sorry?
Attorney Stein?
Yes, Your Honor, I would move at this point that we suspend Dr.Frazer and have Mr. Morales take the stand since I've accommodated the defense with
All
regard
right, I'm going to ask the jury to step out, please.
Of course we are.
Thank you.
He's waiting to get his claws into Jose, especially if he's going this hard on the doctor.
I'm also going to ask the witness to exit the witness box, stand outside in the hallway. Thank you.
Oh, now the witness feels like he's in trouble. What the hell?
All right, Attorney Stein, there's a relevancy argument that's been presented on objection. Now you're going into asking for the witness to be suspended. I'm not doing that. So what is the relevancy of the cannabis?
Mr. Morales, in his statements to the police, mentioned on at least one, if not more occasions, that his trip to Bridgeport was for the purpose of buying weed.
Okay, so Attorney Stein, this particular witness has been called to the stand to testify relevant to PCP. If you would like to ask him questions regarding a different intoxicant, perhaps we should lay the proper foundation if you'd like to inquire. If you would like to point out that he does not have that knowledge, that is fine. But again, I'll grant you a little bit of latitude, but you're going to keep in mind that this witness has been disclosed solely for the effects of PCP on the defendant.
Correct, Your Honor. But if the criteria for other intoxicants, which the defendant admits to pursuing, create similar diagnostic criteria for this doctor, the jury has the right to consider that.
Counsel, I understand that, but this doctor was called here for PCP use.
I understand, but
Okay.
if his opinion is based, if he's offering an opinion as to the effects of PCP on a human being, I should be able to explore him with regard to the effects of alcohol, which is another factor in this case. There is photographs of alcohol.
Attorney Stein, first lay the witnesses, you have to lay the foundation, first of all, whether or not he has the knowledge. He's not been disclosed as to having that knowledge. He's here to testify exclusively
Exactly.
regarding the effects of PCP. I do not see anything in this disclosure that indicates that this witness has any expertise and or has any intent on testifying relative to other intoxicants.
Yep.
So when the witness indicates that they don't have a memory or they're not refreshed or they didn't review that material, you cannot display the type of display that you did. Hover over the witness here in the witness box while the witness is
Exactly.
attempting to refresh recollection. I'm willing to grant you a little bit of
He's being so
leeway in
aggressive.
asking him about his knowledge, the effect of other intoxicants, and see whether or not he'll be able to respond to that. So that's fine, but he has not been called here to testify regarding the DSM on cannabis use or any other drugs. He has been called here to testify solely for the effect of PCP. So
It's part of his basis of knowledge, Your Honor.
No,
it is.
it is
that
not.
is not part of the basis of his knowledge. Okay, so what?
He indicated on his testimony that the DSM-5, which everyone knows with regard to psychologists and psychiatrists.
Attorney Stein,
Yes,
I
Your Honor.
understand that. But what I just saw right here
Mhm.
was an expert who needed his memory refreshed on a substance that he was not intending to testify about. With a DSM guideline in front of the jury, you brought him the book, and then you hovered over him. I had to remind you to retreat back to your desk. Now we have an objection as to relevancy, and all I needed to really hear was the response to the objection on the relevancy, and I didn't need to hear it with any type of tone underlying the response. If you wanted to point out to his testimony as to the relevance, instead what you did is you immediately jumped up and asked for suspension of this particular witness until the defendant testifies. All right, so I, first of all, that's an inappropriate response to the objection regarding relevancy.
Yep.
All I'm asking you to do is respond to the relevancy objection.
And I've responded, Your Honor. I've indicated that based upon my knowledge of the case, the use of cannabis is in my opinion, fair game for an expert testifying as to the effects of PCP,
No,
as well as alcohol
it's not.
would be, based upon the fact that there is evidence
You
already
ask questions
in front
about
of the
PCP,
jury
not
with
everything
regard
else.
to the use of alcohol at 6.5 Myrtle through the recycling container filled with alcohol cans that is part of an exhibit. States, well, I didn't pull it. And again, I think that it is for a doctor to now indicate that he is qualified to testify as to a rare drug such as PCP and not otherwise qualified to talk about alcohol and cannabis. My expectation would be
Hey,
it
the
would be
classic.
disingenuous of the witness, but I will lay the foundation for it.
All right, that's fine. Attorney Stein, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to cite from the Notice of Service and Disclosure of Expert Witnesses
Yep.
in order to respond to Attorney Gavin's objection. And I will state that Dr. Frazer was notified as a witness who would be testifying as to the effects of a chronic history of drug dependence, specifically cannabis dependence.
I agree.
And
Bad girl.
PCP dependence, and the effect that has on a user. So I will allow the testimony, but I am going to remind counsel to please note demeanor in responding to objections. I'm simply asking for a response to those objections. And if the witness has to be refreshed, please hand the witness the document to refresh recollection, retreat to counsel's table, and then we'll do it appropriately, ask if the recollection has been refreshed, and then re-ask the question.
I will just indicate to the court, as I have presented my book, my notes that were in it, Dr. Frazer was flipping through my notes and not the DSM book that I was asking him to look at.
Okay, well then perhaps we won't provide the witness the notes.
I mean,
As the
exactly.
time of the provision of the book. Is there anything further that the court needs to address before I bring this jury back in?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, we'll bring the jury back in.
What about the witness? He's out in the hallway. Cara said, "Ooh, Judge sounds a bit annoyed. I wonder if she's getting hangry and needs to use the potty." She does. She's getting annoyed like we've been with her breaks. I don't like his aggressiveness. However, the doc said himself he is an expert in substance abuse. Okay, so I didn't catch the substance abuse as a general. I just thought he said PCP use. So if he said that he is an expert in substance
Could we
use,
please
it's
bring
relevant.
Dr. Frazer back in?
Stipulate to the presence, maybe.
Thank you. Yes.
If he said substance abuse in general, then yeah, asking about cannabis use or any other substance is relevant. It can be relevant to the trial. If he said specifically PCP use, then he doesn't really have a right to be asking him about cannabis and things like that. But if he said substance use in general, yeah, they can ask him about any substance. I thought he said just PCP. I could definitely be wrong though. I agree, Rhonda. I think anything that grows naturally shouldn't be shouldn't be illegal unless, like cocaine, you have to do things to it to make it
Going to
into a
direct you to retake
snortable
the stand.
substance.
Thank you. Just going to
The only thing that grows is the coca leaf, and then you have to add cement and diesel fuel and all that to make it into a snortable substance. Now, all of that should be illegal, but like mushrooms and marijuana, I don't think should be illegal. I think that people should use it in moderation, though. That's my opinion.
remind you, please come on up, have a seat. You do remain under the obligations of your oath. Attorney Stein, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Dr. Frazer, with regard to cannabis intoxication pursuant to the DSM-5, would you agree with me that the diagnostic criteria includes looking for clinical significant problematic behavior or psychological changes such as impaired motor coordination,
Yes.
euphoria,
Yes.
anxiety,
Yes.
a sensation of slowed time,
Yes.
impaired judgment,
Yes.
and that marijuana intoxication can create impairment in short-term memory,
Yes, it can.
difficulty carrying out complex tasks,
That's possible.
distorted sensory perceptions,
That's possible.
and that those effects can last about 3 to 4 hours.
It depends.
And would you agree with me as well, doctor, that alcohol intoxication is another intoxicant that is specifically referenced in the DSM-5?
Yes.
And would you agree with me, Dr. Frazer, that amongst the diagnostic criteria for alcohol intoxication
Right.
is slurred speech,
Objection, same objection as previous.
Overruled.
slurred
Right.
speech,
Yes.
incoordination,
Yes.
unsteady gait,
Yes.
nystagmus again,
Yes.
Good morning, Annette. Roy,
impairment in
Indy. Have a
attentional
good day,
memory,
love.
It's possible.
that it can create aggressive behavior,
It's possible.
impaired judgment,
Possible.
it can create blackouts,
That's possible.
So with regard then to this concept of dissociated amnesia, right? That can occur as a result of alcohol, cannabis. Those two things can cause dissociated amnesia.
Amnesia can occur with those depending on the amount of use.
How about dextromethorphan, cough syrup? Can you have dissociated amnesia with cough syrup?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I'm sorry?
Overruled.
I would have to refresh with that.
How about just common everyday prescribed medications, such as anxiety medications?
All right, now PCP is a lot
benzodiazepines,
different than that shit.
Well, there's a long list of side effects and warnings that come with all kinds of prescription medication, and we could go through every single medication and go down a list, and there's a possibility, but it doesn't mean that that happens to every single person every single time. It depends on the dosage and the quantity used, and or if it's being used effectively or misused.
Thank you. And that same thing holds true for PCP, doesn't it? What you just said to the end of the question that I asked you, that applies every bit to PCP, doesn't it?
Objection to the form of the question.
Overruled.
Yes, it does apply.
I mean, but
And as a matter of fact, you have absolutely no idea what substance, if any, Jose Morales may have been using the weekend of December of 2019.
Objection, Your Honor. Now, this is outside the scope of the expert disclosure.
yeah,
Overruled.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
PCP is illegal, so it's not the same. I mean, using any of it is illegal no matter what.
You have absolutely no idea what substances, if any, Jose Morales was using the weekend of December 1st, 2019.
I don't know.
Of course he doesn't. He didn't drug test him.
And regarding this concept of dissociative amnesia, you would agree with me that just because a person suffers from dissociative amnesia, that does not mean that they lack the ability to engage in purposeful, goal-directed behavior. Correct? Do you need me to ask the question again?
I don't think that's accurate.
Okay. So you believe that simply you are correlating memory, the ability to imprint or recall a memory, that is, in your opinion, evidence that the person cannot engage in goal-directed behavior?
Objection to the form of the question. It's a compound question.
Sustained.
Dr. Frazer, if someone is in a blacked out state, right, does that mean that they lack the capacity to engage in goal-directed behavior?
When someone's in a blacked out state, that means that they're intoxicated. And when they're intoxicated, their behavior is impaired.
Agreed.
And not goal directed.
Agreed. Well, not goal-directed? So let me ask you this, doctor. Every party that every person in this courtroom went to in college at some point in time where someone became intoxicated and put the lampshade on their head and didn't remember it in the morning, are you saying that that was involuntary, unconscious behavior?
I'm saying what I just said before and
I mean,
testified to.
kinda.
It's impaired behavior by a toxic substance.
Agreed. And in fact, every one of those people the next morning that's holding onto the toilet and praying that they don't ever feel this way again, that don't remember, are you saying that
Yeah.
was not goal-directed behavior?
Yes, I'm saying it's like I testified to before. It's impaired behavior, and it's impaired judgment. Thinking and
Kayla.
reasoning is impaired. Meaning
Again.
decisions are poorly effectuated.
But that
Right.
doesn't mean that they were not goal-driven. That means that they were impaired, but not involuntary.
Objection.
That goes to the statement, like my mother used to say, a drunk man's actions are a sober man's thoughts. So basically what he's saying is committing the homicide of Christine wasn't necessarily just because the PCP use. He had to have some kind of goal to do so to begin with. Now, whether that was his goal or not, I don't think it was his goal, but I think he had some type of hostility towards Christine that was enhanced by the PCP.
Objection to the form of the question. It's a compound question.
Sustained.
Doctor,
Oh, no,
you
Jen.
indicated that you read through some things prior to coming into court today. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that.
Okay. Are you aware that the defense, in response to a demand from the state for the materials that you referenced to formulate your opinions here today, that they provided 3 articles as a sample of what you reviewed prior to coming into court today?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that one was entitled Phencyclidine Ingestion, Drug Abuse and Psychosis by Jacob and Carolyn? Was that one of the ones you reviewed?
That sounds familiar.
And in fact, that's a paper that was written in 1981, 44 years ago. Would you agree with me?
I would prefer to refresh.
May I approach you?
You may.
That's no worse than the documentary Stern's lawyers wanting the jury to see about death chambers and death row. That damn 14 Days in May documentary is horrendous. But I mean, just because that document necessarily is 44 years old doesn't mean that it's not relevant.
Thank you.
Would you agree with me that this paper was written in 1981, which is 44 years ago?
Yes.
And would you agree that you also reviewed a report, Phencyclidine Abuse and Crime, a psychiatric perspective by Jauman and Jauman?
That sounds familiar.
Would you agree with me, doctor, that this article was written in 1982, 43 years ago?
I would like to refresh if I may, Your Honor. Okay, I'm done.
And would you agree with me that that article was written 43 years ago?
It was published in 1982.
This is 2025, am I correct, doctor?
Yes.
Would that be 43 years ago?
I'm not a math major, but that sounds correct.
I understand.
This case is sad. Rhonda. You're right, Jen. Absolutely right. Yeah, Cindy, I've never been much of a drinker. But
Doctor, would you agree with me that disassociation is a disruption in the normal integrated functions of memory and consciousness?
Those are features of dissociation, yes.
Doctor, are you aware of the studies? Did you review any of the studies that recognize that nearly 1/3 of all people who are accused of violent crime, 30%, claim amnesia for that offense?
I'm not familiar with the study you're referencing, but if you show it to me, I can answer it better.
Sure.
I didn't drink much. Unfortunately,
Go on.
I went
Doctor,
for the
you
harder
will
stuff.
agree with me that high stress hormones, corticoids, they can negatively impact the function of brain structures necessary for the encoding and retrieval of information.
I'm not familiar with that particular study that you're referencing.
I'm not referencing a study generally, but are you familiar that stress hormones can impact memory and recall?
Not to
Generally
that
speaking,
extent.
I'm familiar that cortisol is related to stress. It's correlated with stress. And when people,
So,
Your Honor, may I
Objection,
ask
Your Honor,
for
can you
I'll allow
finish
the
the
witness to
clarification?
finish.
Yeah,
the question.
Melis.
Allow the witness to finish the answer. Go ahead.
Oh,
that
God.
cortisol is
I hope not.
related to stress, and when it's elevated, it is usually correlated, meaning associated with people experiencing high levels of stress. And when people are highly stressed, it can impair their memory.
okay. So now, in fact, isn't that
I want to say real quick, the garbage disposal, when they took it apart, they did find bone fragments, but it was just of Christine Holloway. To my knowledge, they haven't found any blood from the baby or bones from the baby. It was all from Christine.
concept referred to as a red out? When someone is angry, when someone is upset, they have an elevated cortisol level that people who are highly emotional, highly upset, highly stressed out can go into what they call a red out.
I'm not familiar with the term red out.
Taking out the term, would you disagree a person who is under high stress, highly emotional, and upset can create the stress hormone cortisol that you talked about, and that can cause a disassociated amnesic state?
I'm not familiar with that outcome.
And not to the extent.
Are you familiar with the research, Dr. Frazer, that talks about people who claim complete amnesia in an event, that is an extremely rare occurrence?
Would you add?
Objection, Your Honor. Not what this witness is offered for is expertise. This is far afield.
He is
Counsel, if you'd like to ask him about the research, state the research, and I'll allow the question.
sure.
I mean, but you're leaving out the whole PCP aspect of it. I mean, those things might happen, and it might not be that common for people to claim amnesia, but you're leaving out the PCP aspect of this case.
In
Right.
a 2017 paper published by the
Yep.
J.M. Acad of Psychiatric Law at 45:147-60, entitled Disassociation, Defining the Concept in Criminal Forensic Psychology by Dominic Bourque, Bourget, MD, Pierre Gagny, MD, and Stephen Floyd Wood, MD. Are you familiar with that publication?
I'm not, but if you show it to me, I can refresh and see if I'm more familiar with it.
I'll come back to that after the break, Your Honor, since I only have my own notes at this point. I will retrieve the article for
Okay.
him,
Fine. We'll
but I
move
will
on.
come back to that line of questioning. Are you familiar with the term malingering, doctor?
Yes,
What is malingering?
feigning symptoms.
Well, you would agree with me that in a person who is making a claim of a lack of memory, that there is a possibility that the person is malingering.
It's a possible hypothesis.
And in fact, you would agree with me that there is testing that people such as yourself can conduct to determine whether a person is malingering or not.
It can be part of a protocol.
Something called the symptoms validity test. Is that one of the tests that a person could be administered to determine whether they are malingering or not?
It can be part of a protocol, yes.
Testing of memory malingering, that so-called Tom's test, is that another one?
It can be part of the protocol, yes.
And as a person, you testified for direct that what you do is the intersection of psychology and law. Do you remember making that statement?
Yes,
That is within your field of expertise.
yes, forensic psychology.
May I have 1 second, please, Your Honor?
Yes.
I had to make a pot of coffee real quick. Malingering is criminal. That fictitious disorder is medical. I'm glad he made it home. I'm sorry. I hate going to the doctor's office. It is cold.
And amongst the reasons why a person may malinger and feign amnesia, Dr. Frazer, would be if they are charged in a crime in an attempt to obstruct the police investigation and to avoid responsibility for it.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Would you agree with me, doctor, that another reason a person may malinger is that they are ashamed of their actions?
Objection.
Sustained.
Excuse me. Dr. Frazer, you will agree with me that PCP is a NM, excuse me. PCP is an NMDA receptor antagonist.
I don't recall. I haven't memorized the molecular structure of all of the drugs that I'm familiar with.
Well, isn't that the portion of the brain, doctor, that PCP directly affects, the NMDA receptor antagonists?
I think the clearer way to say it is that it affects the area of the brain that's associated with perceptual functioning and memory functioning, and then more broadly, cognitive functioning, meaning the ability to think rationally and clearly.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying it for me. So what you're basically saying is that it disrupts neural function by affecting translation.
Objection to the form of the question. That's Attorney Stein's testimony, not the
I'm asking him a question to see if he agrees with me, Your Honor.
You're asking him if that's what he is basically saying. So I'll sustain relative to the form of the question. If you want to present the question in a different manner, go ahead.
Dr. Frazer, does PCP usage disrupt neural function by affecting translation?
I would say it affects neural function by impairing processes of the brain that I testified to earlier: perceptual functioning, sensory functioning, memory functioning, thinking and reasoning.
So this neural discoordination that you're talking about, isn't that neural discoordination?
I would call it neuropsychological discoordination.
These things that you've been talking about, they are directly linked, as you say, to cognitive and sensory motor impairment.
Objection to the form of the question.
I'll allow it.
That's true.
And thereby impacting function.
That's true.
And the functions that are affected are cognitive control,
That's what I just said.
attention and motor coordination.
I also testified about that.
In fact, aren't these all executive function portions of the brain?
No, sensory perception is not always associated or part of executive functioning. Executive functioning is more associated with fixed attention and concentration and sustaining focus.
Okay, so executive functions are part of the cognitive process, are they not, doctor?
Yes, that's part of the brain process.
In fact, the executive function, don't they often help us regulate, self-regulate, plan, prioritize, and to sustain efforts towards goals?
Executive functioning is associated with those features.
So is it fair to say that executive function is the CEO of the brain, that it facilitates the translation from wanting to do something to actually doing it?
Objection, Your Honor. This is not what he has been offered as an expert.
I'll allow it. Overruled.
I haven't seen the term CEO of the brain the way you're describing it.
But you would agree with me that it facilitates the transaction from wanting to do something to actually doing it.
I'd say it's part of the process from a brain function standpoint.
And in fact, signs and symptoms of executive dysfunction, withdrawn. The key components, as you started to say, working memory, is that a key component of executive function?
It's associated with it.
And that's the holding of information temporarily so that you can work with it?
Yes.
Doctor, is there a
Hey,
reason
Orange.
I'm here and you're looking over at Attorney Gavin?
Excuse me, counsel sustained.
Working memory, is that holding information temporarily to
I
work
agree.
with it?
Working memory functions that way.
Response inhibition, is that controlling impulses and delaying gratification?
That's part of it.
Set shifting, is that the adapting to changing demands and switching between tasks?
I'm not recently
Yep.
familiar with that term. I may have read it in graduate school.
That was 23 years ago.
A little bit longer.
How about cognitive flexibility, the adapting or changing behavior or switching between tasks?
I don't understand the question, Your Honor.
Is a key
Excuse me, counsel. So the witness
I
has
agree.
indicated that he doesn't understand
I will
the
re-ask the
question. Please
question
re-ask the
differently.
question, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is cognitive flexibility, would you agree that that is the adapting or changing behavior or the ability to switch between tasks?
I would say switching between tasks is an example of cognitive flexibility.
And a person who is cognitively impaired, would you agree that they would have difficulty planning, organizing, or prioritizing tasks?
That's what I testified to earlier.
How about, would you agree with me that challenges with time management and staying on track?
He is.
Again, I apologize, Your Honor. I don't understand the question.
You can re-ask the question.
Sure. A person who is cognitively impaired, where their executive functions are impaired, do they suffer from challenges with time management and staying on track?
It's possible.
Does a person who is suffering with an executive function cognitive impairment have trouble task completion and following multi-step instructions?
That's possible.
A person with a cognitive impairment or a executive function impairment, do they have problems focusing, concentrating, and paying attention?
That's possible. We tend
Does-
to call that diagnostically attention deficit disorder.
Does a person with a cognitive impairment or an executive function issue struggle with motivation or initiating tasks?
It's possible.
Does a person with cognitive disorder, impairment, or executive function impairment have an inflexible thinking and difficulty adapting to changes?
It's possible.
So, for instance, doctor, would you agree with me that a person driving an automobile, that requires sustained
Hey, Julia.
attention and goal destination?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Right.
Doctor, would you agree with me that a driver needs to maintain focus on the road?
Sustained.
May I be heard, Your
Orange Rose, thank you so very much for the support. I really appreciate that. Orange Rose said, I'm going through a really difficult time and I don't know if I could get through it without you all. Much love, allegedly speculating in chat. That's so sweet. You can email me, sweetheart, anytime you need to. My email is allegedlyspeculating@gmail.com. And, when I'm having a really bad day or I'm upset about something, if I just come and hang out with you guys, it makes my day better too. That was really sweet of you. And I'm sorry you're going through a hard time, sweetheart. I'll keep you in my prayers. Thank you. That was so sweet. I love our speculating family. Y'all are all so sweet and supportive. I really appreciate that. And I'm here for you. So is everybody else.
Is this a good time to take a recess? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to go into our lunch recess. We'll hope to resume testimony at 2 p.m. Thank you.
I saw that one coming, so I did schedule the live for 2 o'clock already. So we've got the live scheduled for 2. I do got to make, I hate to go right after you said that, Orange. I do need to make some lunch for the kids, and I got to run to the store. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Let me drop the Discord link, okay? So since we're about to leave for lunch, shoot, I can't. I can't drop it right now. Okay, yeah, listen while you're driving. Let me try this. Hold on. Yeah, I'll just have to do that. Okay, I'm going to drop you the Discord link. I know, okay, Cara just dropped it. Okay, hopefully if one of those don't work, try the other one. Okay. So yeah, we'll be back in a little bit less than an hour. We might start, I got it scheduled for 2. If they're not back in court, we'll push it out to 2:05 or 2:15, but I'll be in chat or we can sit here and talk or something, until they start. I love y'all. Thank you so much for the support. You can't be back at 2 until your grandson leaves after school to go home. Okay, sweetheart. Well, it's going to be recorded and you can replay it. And when you replay it, the good thing about that is you can speed it up to like 1.5 or 2.5 and you'll get through it a little bit quicker. I'll see you later. Quote unquote, see. All right. I love y'all. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for watching this trial with me. I find it real interesting. If you can make it back or if you can listen, make sure you do so because Jose's going to testify and that should be real interesting. And this prosecutor is going, all claws out at this doctor. I'm interested to see what's going to happen when he gets after Jose. So that should definitely be interesting. So with that, I love you all. If nobody has told you, you are important, you are special, and you are loved, and I'll see y'all in an hour.